Yeah, we're live. It is 7:27, so not quite 7. A little bit past that. Got some stuff going on, but welcome everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about the video that I posted earlier today, and that is basically how to change the amount of horsepower that you make per pound of boost. One of the things that people talk about a lot, and you see this on a lot of the turbo forums, I guess, groups. Well, people discuss that. What will normally happen is they'll post their new turbo. Oh, like this thing is good for 60 horsepower per pound, or 30, or 20, or 11, or whatever the number is. And the thing is that the turbo is kind of responsible for that. So that's actually going to be our poll for later. Is the turbo responsible for the amount of power that you make per pound of boost? And we'll talk about why that's a loaded question. In fact, we're going to put that up. We'll see here. Okay, is the turbo solely responsible for the amount of horsepower the combination makes per pound of boost? Everybody points to the turbo. Look, this turbo is going to make somebody. I remember reading this, and I will always remember this. There are things that kind of stick with you, like pinging is power. That needs to be. I need to make a shirt that says that. And that's been around for so long since I first heard it way back. Back when I was at Rammer Technology. So this was back in, I don't know, in the 90s, late 90s. So pinging is power definitely needs to be a shirt. Lisa was going to make me some new shirts, so I'm definitely going to have that. So what were we talking about? Oh, the poll. So one of the other, I know where I had to get back to it. So one of the other comments that I remember reading a comment and a thing on one of the turbo things, one of the fancy turbo things. Oh yeah, this guy told me that this thing is gonna go up to it's gonna make me like 50 or 60 pounds of boost for whenever somebody says something like this, I always figure out there's some kind of problem here, obviously, because what is it? Is it, first of all, what is it? Is it 50 or 60? So if you're going to exaggerate, be consistent in your exaggeration. Like it is possible to make 50 horsepower per pound of boost. It would take. So it'd mean that your NA motor makes, it's a 750 horsepower, actually technically a 735 horsepower NA motor. So that's what it would take to have your motor make 50 horsepower per pound of boost. But somebody had convinced him, somebody selling a turbo, that his like LS combination making 500 or 600 NA horsepower probably was more like 500 or 550. Oh, this turbo is going to bring that up to like 50 horsepower per pound of boost. I'm like, no, it's not. Well, yeah, it's got this double throwdown billet wheel and double throwdown roller bearings, all the stuff, all the tricks. Okay, good. That's fantastic. And the turbo might be able to do that. It might be, and primarily, again, the big thing is the size of the turbo. How much airflow will the turbo support? And then the other thing is okay, if we team that turbo with, and the easiest way to explain this is to use extreme. So if we take our 2,000 horsepower turbo that could support 50 horsepower per pound of boost on a 700 horsepower motor, because you're going to be at 1,500, or 14 and change, near 1,500 at 14.7 pounds, because that's how the math works out. And that's all that it is. And so 2,000 horsepower, it'd need to be a 2,000 horsepower turbo to have it be efficient at 1,500. So with your 2,000 horsepower turbo, if you put that on a motor that only makes 250 horsepower NA, there is no possible way that any turbo is ever going to make 50 horsepower per pound of boost on a motor that only starts out making 250 horsepower. That's just not possible. And that's what I was trying to explain to this guy. No, this guy told me that it's going to do it. So what he thinks is that when he does his turbo upgrade from the turbo that's on there that's already working and probably doing what he says it is. Now, maybe he might be running that turbo out and it has no more capacity. So a turbo upgrade really is going to help him. So if he went from a 1,000 horsepower turbo to a 12 or 1,300 horsepower turbo, and he's trying to make 12 or 1,300 horsepower, it's going to do that. But at the same boost level, it's not going to give him 50 horsepower per pound of boost. It can't do that. That's just not possible. And I was trying to explain it to the guy, and he just was not having any of it. So let me know what you guys think in the poll, and then we'll discuss this further. But the reality is, it's not the turbo. So you guys can pick any answer that you want. It's not the turbo. But it is. It also is the turbo. So it's kind of a loaded question. So the turbo has to be able to support not the horsepower per pound of boost, not from like, oh, it's got this kind of wheel and this 6 blade and 11 blade or whatever. All that's fine. You can make the turbo more efficient. I understand all that. The big thing is that the turbo first needs to be able to flow enough to support the power level. So it needs to be, and it needs to work in then it needs to work in the range that you make it work in when you combine the turbo, the boost supplied by the turbo, versus the NA power output of the motor. That's what dictates it. So if you have a 450 horsepower motor, that's about 30 horsepower per pound of boost. That's what it's going to make. If you have a 600, it's going to be, I don't know, what's that, 40 or something? I think so. 60 divided by 14.7. Yeah, 41 horsepower per pound of boost. So that's how it works. So and then you want to size the turbo so that at the desired boost level relative to your NA power output, where is the intersection of those things, and is it going to supply that amount of power? So the turbo first has to be big enough. So if you want this combination, your 400 horsepower NA motor to make 1,000 horsepower, the first thing is going to have to happen. You're going to have to have 1,000 horsepower turbo. If you have a 700 horsepower turbo, no combination of those things is going to make that 1,000 horsepower. You have to have at least 1,000 horsepower turbo. Hopefully you have 11 or 1,200 horsepower turbo to make the 1,000 horsepower turbo. You'll just be much happier. And then you also have to have a 400 horsepower motor. If instead of a 400 horsepower motor, you have a 300 horsepower motor, it might be that you can still get there. It's just going to be the intersection is going to be at a much higher boost level. Now you have to run more than 3 bar to get there. So is the turbo still going to work there? Where's the island of efficiency? Where's the surge line? You know, where are all those things happening? I'm less concerned about how efficient it's going to be doing it. Right now, we're just talking about will it or won't it do it. So if we try to make 1,000 horsepower with a GT45 turbo, that's probably not going to happen. If we try to do it with an S475, that you know, especially a T6 version, that might be a doable thing. 78, 75, Gen 2, VS Racing deal, that kind of thing. If we tried to do it with a real GT45 Garrett turbo, it's going to be very easy, providing we have enough motor to start out with. So that's the big thing. But it is a loaded question because the turbo has to be able to do that. And then it has to work with what you're trying to make it work with. So, you know, a good example is we know that a 2J Toyota motor can make 1,000,000 horsepower. But the thing is, the turbo that you would use for a 2J might be different than one that you would use for, you know, because a 2J might be making, I don't know, let's be nice and say that it makes 250 horsepower NA. Maybe it's 300. I don't know. I don't know where they start out. I know they generally make them low compression and they don't put a lot of ported heads and cams and that kind of stuff in them. They just run lots of boost. And so it takes a lot of boost to get there. So that intersection, even with your 1,000 horsepower turbo, it's going to be at a different spot than it would be if you started out with a 600 horsepower like 408 stroke or LS. It's going to be at a much lower boost level and a different intersection line. It's still going to be way out there where the flow is. It's just going to happen a lower number in terms of pressure ratio. So the turbo that you might want for that might be different. You want a turbo that's better at higher pressure ratios. That's what you want. You want to shift the island up and to the right so that you can get the thing to be efficient there. Then you need to do that. And those are all considerations based on we need the turbo to do that. And then we got to look at our motor. What are we trying to do that with? And then we would adjust, because within the 1,000 horsepower, let's stay with our 1,000 horsepower thing, because it's the 1,000 is the new 500. So if we stay with our 1,000 horsepower deal, there are a number of different 1,000 horsepower configurations that will still make 1,000 horsepower. They will just want to do it at different pressure ratios. So they'll want to work with a 4-cylinder K series Honda or a 498 or 500-inch big block Chevy, which those would be different things. Maybe the big block Chevy already makes 900 horsepower. Maybe it's a stroker motor. It's really good and it's already making 900, or it's already making 750 horsepower, and you wanted to get it to 1,000. That's like 7 pounds. That's actually very much. So the turbo that you use for that would be much different. So it's very important that you combine those two. And the best way to increase the amount of power that we make per pound of boost is to make the naturally aspirated motor much more efficient. Make the NA power, raise the NA power. We talked about that in this video with the 5.3. We just did a simple cam test because you get such big gains with a cam. And this one we did a Truck Norris, but the Chupacabra. I mean, you can put any kind of camshaft in there we want. We normally pick, or I normally recommend, smaller cams for these turbo things, just so that you have the other good part of it too, good drivability and torque and boost response and stuff. And then we can still get there. There's still enough of a gain, because we gained almost 60 horsepower with the camshaft, and then we gained almost 90 horsepower at 7.5 pounds at half a bar, which is kind of exactly where it should be. All of that worked out very well and kind of tracked fairly well within the realm of repeatability. All of that tracked very well. So what we did was make our NA more powerful. We went from 365 horsepower to 425. And then when you multiply that, now 1 bar gives us 425, 850. Whereas before, 365 gave us 730. So you can see the gains are pretty big when we start multiplying boosts. And that's exactly what it did with the camshaft. With the cam, we went from making around 24 horsepower per pound, and then we went to about 28 horsepower per pound just by putting the cam in. And that's what it does. Same turbo and all that. So that's what happens when we do that, is that when we increase the NA power output, we make more horsepower per pound of boost. And we did it without any fancy turbo changes. Let's see. In my experience, I've noticed the most horsepower gains going from NA to 1 PSI. And it is. I mean, the horsepower per pound is an average number. They're not all the same. Every pound of boost isn't worth the same amount of power. A lot of that would have to do, the 1 PSI, a lot of times on a turbo is not a big gain sometimes, because 1 pound of boost very rarely is in the island of efficiency. So the island of efficiency, depending on where it is, maybe it's in the 7-pound range, maybe it's in a 10-pound range. It can be in a fairly good range. It can be in a good range of up and down, which is pressure ratio, and side to side, which is flow. So you can still be in the good spot at a variety of some different boost and power output level. So, there's some room there. There's some wiggle room. And the other thing I have today is the carburetor is for sale. It's a brand new carburetor. We've only ever run it once. We ran it on that 400 Pontiac. It was a brand new one in the box. Still have the box. We just put the carburetor on that 400 because we just wanted to make sure that it worked. The young lady that I'm trying to help, her husband passed away and was doing all this Pontiac stuff, and this is one of the things that he has. It's for sale. So, make me a good offer. It's a 750 vacuum secondary carburetor. So good for, driving around and stuff. Did the Edelbrock VRS thingy ever released? You mean the carburetor? Yeah, that carburetor is really good. Yuri, what's going on? Richard, I'm wanting to build a mild 350. If you're talking about a 350 small block, I would go to the wrecking yard and start out with an L31, the fuel injected Vortec motors, and then take the Vortec stuff off and put a cam in it and springs and a dual plane intake manifold, carburetor, and distributor. You can even get an HEI distributor from the wrecking yard, and you'll have to fix the HEI because a lot of them have an awful lot of centrifugal advance. But once you lock that or limit the amount of advance it has, they work really well. Let's get an early stream light going. Yeah, get those likes up. We're at about 50% right now. Are there any questions in performance type stuff that aren't loaded? No, and sometimes the people that are asking them are a little suspect. I'm hoping you and physics are correct because G10 is only making 76 horsepower at the crank with all the accessories. That's what it's making NA. You have a bad compressor map? It's all about math. That was supposed to be one of my favorite things. 50 pounds of boost. I've never run 50 pounds. I Heisenberg the cook. Let's see. We need blown, not blue. I don't know what that is. Matchbox is helpful for turbo. More of it that takes understanding. Yeah, the Matchbot, you can go do that, and it's good. The problem is not very many people go buy the turbos that they would be recommending. How about sequential turbos? Is the power limited by the small turbo? No, not on sequentials. It's not, because on a true sequential system, the primary turbo gets taken out of the system, and it gets taken over at higher flow and power levels by the second turbo. How much horsepower can a stock 460 big block crank handle? I don't know, a lot, I'm sure. I've never broken a crank, even a cast one, so I wouldn't be worried about the crank. What's the pros and cons of water meth injection? Thinking to try this one on a Vortec. We know what the pros are, that it can make the thing less susceptible to detonation. It can lower the charge temperatures. It can, if you are running out of fuel, it can add fuel if you're adding methanol as the fuel. The problem I have with it on some of these systems is that it lacks proper distribution, so that doesn't get distributed evenly, especially on these longer runner intake manifolds. Vortec head's good for a mild 350. Yes, that's why I recommend it. They're probably some of the best factory small block heads, and they're really good at torque production. And you can see, put a small cam on it, they're good. Works out well. How's our poll doing? 74% are saying no, the turbo is not solely responsible for how much power the motor makes per pound of boost. Now that I'm down at the bottom, I can go live chat. Do you have video on those heads? Yeah, I have some videos up on running some Vortex stuff. Have you tested how much power is lost turning the water pump, the power steering, the alternator? Yeah, the video is already up. It's just do a search for the accessory video, and all that stuff is there. Yeah, I've run small blocks with Vortec heads. I run Junkyard ones like I'm describing to you, and then also have run some where we've upgraded heads with Vortec heads. They're good. A Vortec small block, the way that I'm describing, with no cam changes, is going to be about a 290 to 300 horsepower combination with a dual plane and stuff on it. If you put a cam in it, it will obviously be more than that. They're good. They make good street motors. Did you ever get another set of heads? No, I'm going to actually, I got the set back, and they may be at West Tech by now. I'm not sure. I just bought them back from the general. I sold the original set of heads that were on there, and I bought them back because he said that they were cracked. So I just gave him his money back and said, good, just give them back to me. And then I'm going to use those for the Big Bang. I don't need double throwdown ported heads to make this, to try to blow this thing up. So your G10, is that a 1 liter motor? What motor are we talking about here? Heavily ported and welded, extrude honed and ported 72 Pontiac Firefly turbo intake. Made peak power at 7,800. It made peak power at 7,800 with a stock intake manifold. It doesn't matter that it's ported because the runner length didn't change. The L78 heads are fixed. That's what I'm told. So now I have 2 sets of working heads. So we're going to put those back on. So I'm just waiting to get them back from James. Need a razor blade rebuild on my Rocket 350. It's not happy. Well, that's sad. Did you ever hear from the guy who's supposed to port the other heads? I haven't heard from. That's Turbo Monza, right? Isn't that who that is? I haven't heard from him in a long time. I mean, if he wanted the heads, I would have probably given them to him. He said, "Hey, look, dude, I really need these heads." I would have just given them to him. But to not hear from the guy, that's not a good thing. I'm excited about the L78 because the Elgin cam is on its way, and springs. I made my list of stuff that I have. I think the only thing I don't have right now accounted for are the. Oh, that's what I need to do. I need to find the sticker for the valve cover. That's really not going to change the power much. Up in Chico somewhere. Yeah, they were north of us because he came down to pick the heads up and stuff. He was in here the other night. I didn't notice if he was. A question regarding the galley plugs on LS. What's your take on the CNC dog ones? I've never used CNC ones. I've only ever used factory plastic ones. So this is another one of those examples where the CNC one is cool because it's CNC. It's full ability goodness and it looks awesome when you take it out of the package. But is there any stress on the plastic one where that's even necessary? I don't know. I don't think there is. A little silver sticker. I need the sticker that says 375 horse 396. They sell them, so I just need it. And they might sell the lid. So I think they do sell the lid and stuff. I saw a thing on the, or just saw somebody mention the 12 rotor engine. We could all comment on his YouTube channel about where your heads are. I didn't even know he had his own channel. I could go. I mean, it's not that big a deal. I just want to know where they are, and what the deal is. Which is better, 323 or 373 for Silverado? Are you talking about is this a gear question? In the most recent video, you did the 265 cam most similar to a stage 2 truck cam. I think so. I think that's probably what a stage 2 is, a 212, 218. Let's see. Yeah, that's what BTR's is. I like the fact that they showed that the rotary was big enough to make torque, and then it would also rev them. Johnny, I don't know what you're trying to do with your Silverado or using it for towing and stuff. 323 would be an unusual gear for that. I thought that they were more likely 4 series gears. Four rotors put together. B-Dub, you missed the opening monologue. We're just talking about horsepower per pound of boost. You know, a big deal. Turbo Monza. Yeah, I mean, he seemed like a good guy. I talked to him on the phone a couple times. I don't know what the deal is. 76% saying no. Saying negatory. I know I'm excited for going back down and talking to or going back down and running some more tests down at West Texas. Obviously, talking to those guys too, see what's up. Speaking of talking to people, I've been talking to several people about going python hunting with me. So we'll see who's able to step up. It's hard because you're asking somebody to go for 4 or 5 days or whatever, and it's hard for people that are working. Not that I don't work, but to take off from what they're doing. Is there any downside to having huge ports on a turbo application as they have positive pressure? Is there such a thing as too big? Yeah, that's a misconception. The turbo doesn't make that okay. Don't think about the motor as a turbo motor. Think about the motor as an NA motor. Whatever the motor does NA, the turbo just multiplies that. So if you have big ports on it that are not very effective, they're still not going to be very effective under boost. 1 liter, the runners are 9 inches from the back of the valve to the plenum. Runners itself are, the runners on the intake manifold are less than 6 inches. I thought it was longer than that. I'm not going to the official hunt. I'm just going to catch a python in Florida. What cam would you recommend for making power on a 302? You got to give us a lot more information than that. You got to tell me what you're trying to do with it and what car it's in and where you want to make power and what are the other things going along with it, and is it an automatic? Do you have a stock converter? All that stuff. Scott, 4.6 mod motor installed comp. 266 cams, they make that? That's a thing. 230 degrees of duration. Recently lost some line. Can advance the cam 4 degrees to gain a little back? I don't know. The thing that I would suggest you do is I would suggest you check if you're going to, I don't know if you're just going to advance them. What I would suggest is you degree the cams. Make sure they're the same side to side, and those cams will be soft down low compared to a stock cam. You're not. I mean, even the 262 cam is going to be a little bit soft down low compared to the stock cam. I don't know how much you'll get from advancing them. I don't know how much piston to valve clearance you have, so whether that will be okay. I don't know any of that. I know, right? Who wouldn't want to go python hunting? I talked to Chad Reynolds today. He's like, oh yeah. He goes, you remember, I don't like snakes. He said, but I'm definitely all in on this. So it'll be perfect for video. Thinking of adding a stage 1 truck cam to my 4.8. Currently running a single plane. Yeah, that won't be a good combination, but if you put a dual plane on it, it will help a lot. You'll notice a big change going to the dual plane. When you degree your cams, you do one. I only do 1 cylinder. If I can carry my shotgun. Well, it's Florida, right? So I think that isn't that mandatory that you do that? I mean, who wouldn't want to go traipsing through the swamps, right? It's like nothing but good. What's the highest compression you've run? I think the highest I've ever run is somewhere in the 11s. But Mahovitz and those guys that are doing dedicated race motors have gone, in the 13, 14 range, I think. But you just have to have lots of good fuel in it, and it really narrows the tuning window. I think they were running methanol in theirs. Yeah, gators are and you have other venomous snakes too, water moccasins and stuff. I'm not too worried about that, and I'm not going to be traipsing through the water actually, hoping that there's not gators in there. The fun would be wrestling with a python. I agree too. I mean, quite honestly, it sounds adventurous and stuff, but the reality is the hard thing is just going to be to find them. Just like with snakes that I go look out here, I catch rattlesnakes all the time and stuff, and it sounds really exciting, but it's not. I mean, it's like anything. Once you know what you're doing, and a python, they when they show the stuff on TV, the guys are, trying to do the fancy grab and stuff, and usually shorting it or longing it. They're not getting close enough to the head, and then it's able to turn around and bite them. And so you can do it without any of that happening. So you can make it really kind of boring. Just run up and grab the tail, stretch it out, and press its head down and grab. It's not, I don't want to take away from what these guys are doing. It's kind of cool, which is why I want to go do it. But the python is not venomous. Even if it does bite you and then you grab it, then you got bit and you have a wound, you have blood, whatever. It's not that big a deal. I say that now, but if I get bit, it's probably going to hurt like hell. Don't forget about the big hogs. Yeah, they do have those. Eat a bunch of bananas because it helps keep the mosquitoes away. Why is that? Does it change your CO2 output? Because that's what mosquitoes are attracted to. Streetcar racing tomorrow night at Western Colorado Dragway. Kevin, good. Let me know what it does. Let me know. Steve Irwin didn't think the Stingray would be that bad. Yeah, I know. That was a bad deal. He was awesome. Why would you grab snakes? Because it's fun to catch them. Are pythons stronger than rattlesnakes? By a lot. Think about like the strongest dude that you've ever seen in your life. And that's what pythons are, except that their muscle is, 8, 10, 15, as much as 20 feet long. So yeah, they're super strong. If you were in the water with one and it was a 15 plus foot snake, you better have your wits about you. But I don't plan on traipsing through the middle of the night and trying to find something like that by myself. Pythons are more intimidating than a rattle. They are. I mean, whenever you see a bigger snake of any kind, I've caught the biggest snake I caught probably is 5.5 or 6 feet. It was a gopher snake, and it was when I was little. It was much bigger than I was, but it was exciting. It was intimidating. I didn't want to grab it because I would think I was 5 or 6. Richard, what do you do when you catch rattlesnakes? No, I just video them and let them go. A lot of times we will. I have removed them and relocated them for ranchers and stuff that are out in the area, just so that they won't be around livestock and stuff. But rattlesnakes are an important part. They're like every other snake. They eat lots of rats and stuff and things that are, that you really don't want around. They recently caught a 19-footer. I know I think that's the record now for the pythons. I've handled 8 and 10-foot pythons. They're very stout. They are. My son got to hold one when we went to a reptile show, which I'm not a big fan of. As much as I like reptiles, I don't like seeing them in Tupperware. But they had a guy there that had a big one, and he wrapped it around my son. And when my son was little, he could probably barely lift it. Yeah, and rattlesnakes are. When I go out, especially when I was doing it more often, I haven't had as much time recently. But when I was going out, I would catch 100 or more snakes a year, and probably 70 or 75% of them would be rattlesnakes, and they're just not fun because they're they're like they have a very narrow tuning window that you can't. I've never had a rattlesnake where I got it so that it was nice enough to where it would just crawl around and not want to bite you. I've never done that with a rattlesnake. We do that with all the other snakes, gopher snakes and king snakes and stuff, and they almost immediately calm down and are like, okay, this guy's cool. He's not trying to eat me. This is Richie. He's good. We heard about him. He's okay. And then they're calm and they're not bitey. The problem is you can't do that. I've never done it with a rattlesnake, and I don't know if they eventually get like that. Saw Marlon Perkins wrestle, and I know I watched Marlon Perkins, the Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, all the time back in the day when I was a kid. Are constrictors invasive in Florida? Yeah, they are. That's why they want everybody to get rid of them. Ivan, what did you catch when you were? Why would you have snakes? Well, I don't know which one you said that I became wise now that they could go. Yeah, rattlesnakes can. The rattlesnakes are bad because even if it doesn't kill you, it's really, really expensive to to go through the get the anti-venom and stuff. It's not a good deal. Mike, you should probably look at like a 268 kind of comp cam, 218, 224, something like that. For big block stroke engines, you rev them to about 7,200. It depends on what combination you're talking about. They can go more than that, and guys do, but I don't know how much power you want to make, and I don't know why you're wanting to rev it more. Richard, what do you think of a Texas Speed 550 lift cam with a turbo? I don't know which 550 lift cam you're talking about. They probably make 50 of those different ones. Didn't Marlon Perkins comment as Jim wrestled the snakes? Jim came much later on. Marlon used to be the guy in the bush. But then while I wait in the safety of the blinds, this is probably when Marlon was probably in his 70s or something when he was doing that, 70s or 80s maybe. How much boost can you give a 5.3 before something fails? Up North Woods, you need to look at the Big Bang stuff, and it will tell you. It's way north. It's way north of 4-digit stuff. What can you tell us about the Holly tuner? What do you want to know? Not familiar with rattlers, but cottonmouths, very aggressive snakes. I've never, in the many years, I guess I've been catching snakes since I was 5. Never run across aggressive snakes. I've run across defensive snakes, which is much more likely because a snake is very, very small and people are very, very big. So a snake is not going to come after you because it thinks that you're food or because it's pissed off at you. That's not a snake thing. They're going to defend themselves because they don't want to be eaten by almost everything in the forest that wants to eat them. Yeah, it's very deadly. Yeah. Yeah, for everybody that has seen Ricky Tikki Tavi should know that, or Indiana Jones. Caught a blue racer when I was a kid. Yeah, this racer snakes can be really fast. And Joe Snake Wrangling YouTube channel. I do have a couple of snake videos up for, I think, rattlesnakes and stuff that I've caught. Oh, the carb for sale is, yeah, that's right. There is a carb for sale. I'm going to show it right now, as a matter of fact. Let's see here. How do I get there? I don't know if I can get there from here. I think I can. I can. Pretty sure I can. 2 downloads. There it is. Okay. So this is a carburetor for sale. It has the, feeds and all that on it. Quick fuel, I think it's a 750. It definitely is a vacuum secondary. It has an electric choke. The carburetor, like I said, has only been run once. It was run on that 400 Pontiac that I ran way back. That it was owned by this lady, and I'm just selling it for her, so that she can get some of the money back from the stuff that her husband had. Mutual of Omaha. Getting a 5-foot cottonmouth is really big for a cottonmouth. Getting my GT45 tomorrow. How far can I flex? Can I lean on my flex injectors with the 5.3? I don't know. I don't know how big the flex fuel injectors are. Does anybody know? I thought that they were like 46s or 50s or something. Black Mamba. Yeah, that might be the exception. I'm not a Black Mamba expert by any stretch of the imagination. I have seen them, or at least video and stuff of them chasing people. And I think that so they may be the exception, and they may be the snake that has attitude. Carburetor. I'm thinking it's a $600 or $700 or $800 carburetor. So somewhere in the half of that range, $350, $400, I think would be a good price. Will a 95 millimeter throttle body increase power on a stock 6.2 intake? A 95 over a 90? I don't think so, because what's the opening on your intake manifold? I wonder why my chat was disconnected and connected. Brown snakes from Australia. Maybe, I don't know. Again, I'm not over in other countries. Can you get more torque if you degree your cam in a small block? Maybe. You don't know unless you try it. You don't know what the cam is. You don't know where it's put in at. You don't know if it will respond. There's a lot of you don't knows there. Everything in Australia wants to kill you. They do have a lot of bitey stuff there. Tiger snake. Yep. Australia has lots of them. Have you done videos on degree and cams? Yes, I have. But the thing is, cams is a big word, and it encompasses a lot of things. And degreeing them by changing them, advancing them, or retarding them is not universal for every cam. So it might be that you advance one or retard one, and it doesn't do the thing that you want, because you don't know where the cam was when they ground it. You don't know where it was installed. You don't know any of that. And unless you actually went in and said, oh, it's here, and now I'm going to make it here. That's good if you do that. Most people don't. But I do have a video up where we took an LS9 cam, which is very soft down low, and I was hoping that if we advance it, that it would improve power, and it did not. I thought that I had another, either small block Chevy or Ford, where I advanced and retarded the camshaft. I thought that video was up. I remember doing the magazine story for it, but I thought that, there's a couple thousand videos up now, so you forget some of the stuff, and especially if you've already done them as stories, and sometimes multiple times. So I thought that I had done that, but again, you just don't know until you test it. I've had a cottonmouth advance toward me when trying to harm them. So you were trying to harm them, and it was defending itself. Oh, sidewinders are really cool. I've seen a few of those in the desert. Degreeing is not for us poor folks. You just have to have a degree wheel. Well, and a dial indicator. Do you log hours in the dyno room? You mean do I have a login sheet? I spend a lot of time in the dyno. Good to see you, Getaway. Getaway's in the house. And a calculator. Yeah. A lot of times we ended up, we shouldn't do this, especially with a Sharpie, writing on the degree wheel, but I don't recommend it. Or on your hand. That's why it's good to have a, old school analog data logging. Black racers, for some reason around here, will come at you aggressively. I haven't seen that with snakes. The fact that it's coming toward you doesn't mean that it's aggressive. It's not going to come at you and try to bite you, because they don't do that. They're not going to go try to bite something that's bigger than them, because they know what the reality of the world is. It may be coming towards you, and it probably more than likely would crawl right by you, or is looking for another way out. I would err on that side. What's the best lobe separation for a turbo cam? There isn't one. What you need to do is think about what cam you want NA, and then you need to add boost to it. What are the things that you want from the camshaft? Do you want low speed power? You want top end power? Do you want mid range power? Not that any cam is going to be able to give you only that and not the other things. There's going to be some sort of combination. So that's why I provide power curves, because when we run one, a lot of guys say, well, I want a torque cam. Okay, great. But it's still made best power at 5,800 RPM, even though it's a torque cam, because they think that the camshaft can make all its power down at 3,500 or 4,000, and camshafts can't do that. I carry a snub nose with snake shot. I've been doing since I was 5, and the times that I've carried a weapon, a gun, or even a knife, going out and hunting snakes, or I don't even hunt them, I don't kill them, but looking for them, maybe up on my property once or twice, and probably because we were going to be shooting that day. So I'm not worried. And I have my dogs with me a lot of times. I had my kids with me. I'm pretty confident about what's going to happen if we do see a snake. Blue indigos. Blue indigos would be cool. And also they make, there are black ones too. And the indigo snakes are part of the king snake family. And they also eat rattlesnakes, which are a lot of snakes do actually. A lot of snakes will eat, and whatever they can overpower, they will eat, and that includes rattlesnakes. Snake boots. I do have the snake guards that are, if you have jeans on or whatever, and then you wrap these around so nothing could bite through them. Not a bad idea if you're walking through tall grass and real snaky areas. I have worn those before. Do you have snake poles? I have snake sticks, if that's what you're talking about, with the little squeezy handles on them. I don't use those very often. I have the thing that I've caught more snakes with than anything else is a piece of welding rod that I've bent into a hook. And that's only because, crazy guys. That's for me, like getting my head and arms up under the rocks and reaching in because the snakes always go back and hide in the farthest place away. And so that's me trying to hook them. And I even have it sanded and even taped so that it doesn't hurt the snake, because I don't want to poke them. So I made sure that it wasn't sharp or anything. And then so I can reach in and grab them and pull them out. And so they can hold them up. If it's a rattlesnake, you just hold them away, hold them by the tail so they can't curl back up and get you. But if there are other kinds of snakes, you just grab them. And if you can't just grab them, I need to be able to reach in. And I've caught more snakes with that, hundreds of snakes with that, rather than the little grabby ones. The little grabby ones, because they interlock like this, because they interlock like that, they tend to pinch the snakes. So you want to get the ones that are the little squeezy clamp ones, because then those don't pinch the snakes. But a lot of guys are not that good with the control, and it tends to injure the snakes, and I don't like to. Bull snakes are like gopher snakes. Yeah, like all of those will eat other snakes. Richard, should I get a GT45 or an S475? If you're only looking for low speed and you're not looking for lots of power, a GT45 is definitely going to spool better than an S475. I was watching a 1320 video about Nissan Patrol with quad turbos. Is there any benefit to doing this? No, it's just cool. I mean, because a turbo is cool. Twin turbos, come on. But quad turbos, that's like all of it. Yeah, thinking, man, the dogs are a problem, and I worry about them because when we take the puppies out to where we hike up in the trails, there's rattlesnakes up there, and there's other snakes too, and so I am watching and scanning, and I'm looking for snakes. I haven't seen any yet, but I don't want them to find them. My other two dogs used to run all over when I would take them up in the hills. They would just take off. That's the reason that I took them, so they would go be dogs. But every time I found a snake, I made sure that they knew to stay away from them. They were actually very good about that. Hit the coral heads in the glades. What are the coral heads? I'll have to look that up. I've looked at your dyno videos and haven't figured out for myself, what have you found to be the largest cam where you start losing power below 3,500? So you want to not lose power below 3,500. Is that what you're saying? So you want to maintain power from 3,500 on up. And I think that's actually a fairly big cam. I know the tack dogs were on. High compression, big inch, big block, low boost, single turbo, E85. Lance, I'm trying to look back and see what else you were talking about. Careful hiking in Southern California. There's been a lot of mountain lions. Yeah, I'd be worried about that. Especially with the puppies. I mean, I'm not worried about seeing one. If I'm there, then like I said, I like my chances, because that sort of stuff doesn't scare me. I'm much more worried about people than I am about animals. But I wouldn't want the dogs to get hurt. And Milo is not, he's not in his 20s anymore. So I don't think that he would fare very well. And dogs don't fare very well against a mountain lion anyways. So I would have to, I'd have to jump in. That's a time when I would want to have something, at least a knife or a pokey stick or a big rock or a Glock. Coyotes too. We have seen coyotes up there. I'm not at all concerned about a coyote. A coyote I would grab and throw to the ground, and I would choke them out. I got no problem with that. A mountain lion would be a different thing, though. My boomstick will speak. As a kid, we had 3 dogs attack a raccoon. It was closed for a while, but the coon caught a stray bullet, and then that took the fight out of him. Raccoons are really, really mean, and they are super feisty. So it takes a dog, because the raccoons and squirrels are like that too. Squirrels will like grab onto their nose. So if the dog isn't like, oh no, you're definitely going to die. If it's not that kind of dog, a dog that hasn't been either trained or that was part of his makeup, because dogs are different. And so if he is that guy, then he goes, oh, now you've just pissed me off. And now that means I'm going to bite you and shake you. And it's the same thing with raccoons. Raccoons will, scratch and claw and get them in the eyes and all kinds of stuff. So unless it's a dog that's like, oh no, this is you or me, and it's definitely going to be you, unless it's that kind of dog, they usually leave. Did you hear about the hiker that choked out a mountain lion? See, I like that, and I think that sort of thing is kind of what I'm thinking of. I think you go, Brazilian jiu-jitsu on him. I always have a big stick hiking. Yeah, if you have and that's what I told my kids when we were up there. I said, look, if something happens, obviously always get something between you and whatever's there. If it's a bear or a mountain lion or coyote or something you're afraid of, get a tree between you and him and climb the tree or whatever you got to do. I said, or look around for a weapon. I said, look, a big rock. A mountain lion, if you hit a mountain lion with a big rock in the head, I said, it's gonna, at the very least, it's gonna take the edge off. I said, it might kill him. It might knock him out. I said, the same thing. If you can look around, I said, that's why I always kind of look around and see what's going on while I'm walking. If I have a big stick, like a spear, a spear sized stick, we have a few bobcats. Yeah, I've seen bobcats. Jody, my 15-pound dog was playing tug of war with the neighbor's 2 German shepherds. Oh, your dog was a rope? That's not good. Yeah, don't let the puppies. I don't let off the leash. Milo, when we go out, he's off the leash because he knows what he's doing. But when we come up to somebody that's hiking, and we see lots of other people hiking, guys riding bikes and stuff, whenever we see somebody else that has another dog, we put Milo on the leash. Milo's a golden retriever, and he's is going to go ask them for food or give them a kiss or whatever. But I don't know how they're going to react. So we just want to keep them in control. Did you ever compare between a big single turbo and a mid-sized turbo with twin turbos? I've done a single versus twin. I just did it with the turbos that I had. If you size the 2 turbos, the twin turbos, to make the power that the single big turbo can, they're going to be very, very comparable. Can you run a turbo on a stock 5.3? Yes, I have stock 5.3 stuff up there. You can't do it with a stock fuel injection or with a stock fuel injector and with a stock fuel pump, because that they don't support enough fuel flow for that. Oh, bit your wife too. I've had to break up dog fights before, and like I said, I'm lucky that I don't know if it's luck or not. I mean, it's from growing up. Dogs don't bother me at all. They don't scare me one bit. So I have no problem. And I've done this before with a big German Shepherd. Our family had, not our family, but our extended family had a big German Shepherd, and our little beagle, they brought the German Shepherd over, and our beagle was there at the time. This is when I was probably 13, maybe. The beagle was feeling very territorial, and I think it had just buried a bone in the backyard or whatever, and the German Shepherd's running around, and so the beagle went after him, and the German Shepherd said, look, you need to stop this right now, otherwise this is going to get serious. And so I just ran in and dove in and wrapped my arm around the German Shepherd and pulled him away, pushed the beagle. The beagles want to come back. I'm trying to hold him back. I'm like, they're like, what are you doing? What did you get bit? I'm like, yeah, but this German Shepherd is like 120 pounds or whatever. It's gonna kill the beagle if the beagle keeps doing this. It doesn't obviously want to fight. I said, but you got to stop them. I said, and it's the dogs don't want to bite the people. They want to bite each other. And just, even if you do get bit, just you control it and make stuff happen. A 44 Magnum. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a good gun to carry, like in bear country, maybe. Recall, when Florida was underwater way back, there were coral heads left from back then. Oh, so that these were coral heads that are now out of the water. Is that what you're saying? They're obviously dead, right? But they're still staying there, and the pythons like it because there's labyrinths in there. Are two smaller turbos better for turbo lag than one big one? No, not necessarily. Not if their size is the same. Shadow Ops, you got attacked by a German Shepherd. I've been bitten by dogs before. When I was little, I was walking fences, which is something that we used to do back in the day, and I fell into the neighbor's yard and got bit by their dogs. But they were protecting their stuff. Ooh, English Mastiffs. I know those are big. My female brought back several bunnies, random skulls, and my male brought back a deer carcass. They do. They want to bring back the things and share them with you. It's like cats and stuff do that all the time. Here, you want this half of the lizard that I just got? Oh, great, you gave me the head. That's nice. And dogs do that too. You're like, here's part of a bunny. I'm kind of full. So you want to finish this up? Those are cool. Those are beautiful dogs too. Pit bulls, boxers, German shepherds. An Akita, wolf hybrid. Coral. I would like to catch a coral snake, although I think that the coral snakes in Florida are different than the coral snakes that we have out here. We don't even have them in California. They do have them in Arizona and New Mexico, though. Small town called Coral Springs that's built on coral. Okay. Richard, have you ever done any compound turbo stuff? Yeah, I have a couple of videos up on compound turbo stuff I did on LS. Red touches yellow. That's right. Red touches black. You're coming back. Red touches yellow. Kill a fellow. That's right. We do have king snakes in California. We have California king snakes. That's where they get the name. Yeah, coral snakes in Texas too. Although coral snakes are rear fang, they're very small, and they're very shy. And I think that they're are not what are they? They like being underground, whatever that is. I was gonna say arboreal, but that's trees. Kyle, why are you? What is your math problem that you're throwing out there? Reclusive. No, there's the same thing as like a ringneck snake is like that too. Terrestrial. Big cats hunt humans from behind and go for the neck. They do. That's why the guys wear the masks on the back that for tigers particularly, but blue healers. I thought king snakes had the same color as coral snakes, but different patterns. No, they don't. There are other kinds of king snakes. Mountain king snakes look very similar to coral snakes because they have the red in them, and then milk snakes look like coral snakes, and then false coral snakes look like coral snakes, and then what else? What else besides milk snakes? Mountain king snakes, and there's one other one too that has that red and yellow color. But king snakes are black and white or brown and white. Why can't everyone in the world be as friendly as cute puppy? That's what Lisa and I were talking about when we're walking our puppies. Every time they see any dog, any person, they just go nuts and start wagging their tail and be so happy. I'm like, man, I wish I liked people that much. Just give an example of how boost isn't the only thing responsible for horsepower. It's not. We already talked about that. It's the NA horsepower output multiplied by the pressure ratio. Australian Shepherds are cool. I don't like snakes. Lisa doesn't either. The fireworks, this will be the last question. I got to get going. So we're going to close out our poll. 79% saying no. Good for you guys. Danny, you dug up a bunch of baby snakes in Tennessee. They were black with a red ring. Was the red ring around their neck? Then the ring neck snakes. The fireworks stand guy also had a petting zoo every year. He had a mountain lion out front so you could pet it. I'll do you one more. Do you one better. When I first started working for the magazines, I worked at McMullen Yee, and Tom McMullen used to bring, because his logo was a cougar, was a mountain lion or cougar. He used to bring his cougar into the office, walking down the hallway. It's pretty cool. And on that note, it is time to go. But I will be back tomorrow. Late. More snake stuff.